Okay, good morning, everybody. It's first time that we're actually running this as a live stream. We've run the midweek market update for a number of times. Just let me bear with me. First time that we're actually running this as a live. I've got some feedback there. Okay, so this is a little bit of a trial. We're going to be seeing how this runs as a live stream, so hopefully it's useful. Let's take a look at the live markets. So just before we get into things, hopefully you've had a chance to have a read through the risk disclaimer, make sure that you're comfortable with it. We're not licensed to be able to give any advice. What we're talking through here is the markets, the way that we view them, and view them in the context of the trading strategies that we use here at Smack the Markets. And we're going to be working through some of the popular markets that we use to help us to build potential sort of trading decisions. So if you've got questions, again, you can drop them into the questions box. I'll be able to see those and I'll answer those as we go. So first of all, let's take a look at the markets that we discussed in Monday's newsletter. So not a great deal has happened with those. We've got dollar CAD for starters. This one, if you recall, we were looking for opportunities if the market started to move higher. And the main reason for this was that we've got a sort of a potentially a structural turnaround here on the weekly chart. So the market had sort of moved higher on the recent strength of the dollar. That had sort of broken through a structure line here, as you can see on the weekly chart. And here on the daily chart, we've now got this formation of an uptrend forming here, and now moving averages in the right order. We've got buying momentum coming in, so starting to look sort of quite nice for a move higher. Since Monday, though, the market's just been sort of consolidating here within this range, and we've got a consistent number of tests towards the long side. So this is just reinforcing the price action here. It's looking particularly nice, particularly if we can get a break to the long side on this. If we come down to the 4-hour time frame, you can see here that again, let me just zoom out. You can see the number of tests. We've got 4 tests of this level here on the top end of this consolidation, and we've got consistent rising lows as well. Now, the one thing that tells me that this is possibly not ready to break out yet is because we've got some significant divergence coming through the indicators as well. On top of that, today the US dollar is strong, so we may well start to see a bit of strength coming through as this sort of pushes through. So we'll keep an eye on this, and this one is on the watch list. The other market that we discussed was gold. So let's come and have a look at our gold. Okay, so what we were looking at on Monday was if the market actually continued to roll over. And at the moment here, we've got almost gold and precious metals at some sort of key points here, some key interesting points. You can see that the market's had a very, very long run on the weekly chart. We've had a very good move to the high side. It has come back into the moving average zone here. It's come back into sort of an area where we start to look for strength coming back into the market. Now, realistically, I prefer these turnaround points at some significant structure points, and we've got in the back of our mind here that gold could retrace down to the level that we have marked in here, so around sort of that 118 area. So there's still potential to the short side on this. So any longs would have to be sort of well set up and give us some good confirmation. If we have a look at this on the daily time frame, though, let's just sort of zoom into this. We can see that on the sort of recent breakdown, the market's actually come into support. It's established this support around here where it had the previous low where we had this sort of spike lower, and now we're sort of getting a run to the long side. Now, certainly the Biden and Trump debate last night certainly sort of helped this push higher, but we've now got to that 119 area, and from this point here, we've got resistance coming back in. So we've got a decision point coming back into the market here on gold. So the way I'm looking at this is, from a daily perspective, this is looking sort of fairly interesting for a continuation short, particularly if the market breaks below the low here, and then we could be looking for another easy retest of the lows where we've got the previous support, and then possibly if we get below this, then we could be looking down to that lower level here as well. If I just zoom out of that, you get some sort of context of the structure here. There's not a great deal here. It's only sort of recent price action that's put in this structure. Now, if I come down to the 4-hour time frame on this is where we've got a lot of markets in almost sort of decision point areas this morning. And there's going to be a few of these this morning, and we'll see how these actually sort of develop. Because when we look at the 4-hour time frame, we can see that we've got an intraday long trend starting to form. So this is not perfect by any means. It's very, very new. It's not very mature, but we've got moving averages, or the 10 and the 20 period moving averages, starting to formulate now. We've got higher highs, higher lows. The market is reacting technically, and gold does tend to react quite technically to these levels. And we're pulling back into the previous sort of structure point here. So we've got support and resistance, and the market's pulling back into here. So we may well have some intraday play here, where we could be looking at a move from here, if we find support, maybe back up for a retest here of that 19 price point. So that's the sort of thing that I'm keeping an eye on here. If I do get a position here, then and we do get a play here, then this is going to be very much an intraday opportunity, something tight setup, cover the risk quickly, and maybe leave a piece on and see how this goes. But this is not going to be a sort of a swing position at this point. Now, whilst we're looking at gold, let's take a look at silver here. Silver is very, very similar in the sort of context of correlation with the markets. Silver, if we have a look at this, I think silver is looking a little bit more on the bullish side. It's still got the context here of a decision point where the market is. You can see that silver actually dipped much further below the previous spike low compared to gold. It's now rallied back up above that level, and we've now got a retracement back into the top end of these sort of structures here. So if I just drill this down to the 4-hour time frame, you'll see what I mean. So the intraday price action here is looking much more interesting, I think, on the silver market. So if precious metals do get a strengthening today, then or indeed throughout the remainder of the week, then this is the market I think we could be getting some opportunities on, rather than the gold market. Now, both of these are going to move in correlation to each other, but as you can see, we've got a much cleaner sort of price action here on silver, and it's pulling back into this nice sort of structure point at the moment as well. So these are 4-hour candles. The lower time frames have sort of slipped back beyond the sort of general geometry of the market at the moment. 2 hours not looking too bad. The 4-hour is looking the cleanest at the moment, I think, too. So that's the sort of view on precious metals. Let's have a look at the Dow. Okay, so if we take a look at the Dow, let's have a reminder of the bigger picture here. Now, of course, these markets have had a phenomenal run from the coronavirus crash. We all know from the bigger picture that there's still multiple sort of pressure here for the markets, maybe to continue sort of weakening off. There's lots of big sort of issues with the sort of virus. We've got big sort of unknowns with the US presidential election. But there's always things that can be pulled out the bag. Maybe an additional stimulus package, who knows? On that note, by the way, if there is another stimulus package delivered to the markets, then that's likely to be extremely bullish for US equities. So look for upside on that. In the meantime, we can see here on the weekly chart that the market has come back to, if I sort of zoom into this again, it's pulled back in, dipped under our 27 level. Now, at the early part of the week, the market was finding support at the 27 structure point through here, and we got a bit of a move off there in the early half of the week. Now the market has taken a dip again, and again, that presidential election debate last night seemed to create quite a bit of volatility in the market, and the weakness has come into the Dow since then. So the big question for me is this lower structure point, this 27,000 price point. If the market gets underneath here, then we can be seeing and expecting some significant run to the short side. The lower level here at 27,600, which was on the sort of spike low here, and then down to 26,000 is the sort of structures that I'd be looking at. If we just come down to the 4-hour time frame, you can see exactly what I mean. The level through here at the moment where the market's finding support. Zoom out of this. We've got support and resistance around where the market is making a bounce at the moment. And you can see that if we can get if the market does break underneath here, then I think we can be seeing a move down here, back down to sort of test these lows down here at least. That's around that sort of 26,600, and then possibly down towards that 26,000. So quite an interesting point here, and significant point here for the US Dow. Okay, so let's come over to the, or before we go into the currency markets, let's have a look at oil first of all. So there's a couple of ranges here that oil, we've been interested in around oil, and that's since the break up here. The market's then been in this sort of consolidation. The sort of key level here has been around that sort of 39 price point, and the market's just like getting underneath that level at the moment. If we do, then we've got some significant sort of distance to the short side. Now, oil's quite a risky market to be trading at the moment. Just to bear in mind, if you are trading oil, Saudi Arabia has sort of mentioned that they are very keen to support higher oil prices, or support the sort of current levels of at least. And they have sort of put out a little bit of a warning to traders that are trying to trade the market to the short side. So just sort of bear that in mind. Having said that, they're not likely to be too concerned until the market really starts to get down into these sort of $30 levels. So at the moment here, the market, as you can see, we've got this sort of level underneath price action at the moment. We've got this sort of range. I think if we can get underneath here, you can certainly see the market starting to roll over. Then we could be seeing a push down here to this 36 sort of price point. That's the sort of previous lows that price tested. We have a look at this on the 4-hour time frame. Again, you can see the significance here. The market sort of come down. It's actually dipped underneath this level, and now we're just consolidating along the top of it. So again, sort of further weakness. We could see some significant move. Even if we get a move down here towards this sort of 37 price point, that's a huge move in oil. and a huge move for trading opportunities. Okay, so if we come over to the currency markets now, and let's have a look at the markets that we discussed on Monday. So we discussed Aussie Swiss. Let's get our timeframes back, and we'll see that Aussie Swiss hasn't developed as yet, but I'm still liking this, and this is still on the watch list for opportunities to the short side. If we see weakness in the Aussie and strength in the Swissy, then this is likely to continue to help to push this market lower. As we can see, the longer term trend on Aussie Swiss has been to the short side. It had an easy sell-off with the coronavirus crash. We've had the technical rebound here, and as you can see, even though we've had the technical rebound since the highs up here, since we've had the high, the market's been struggling to make any sort of further highs to the long side. So we've made, you know, lower highs, and the market is now sort of rolling over. So this is a big level for this market. You can see from a technical perspective, it's quite an important level as well. So, you know, if the market, or if and when the market does get through here, then we've got some potentially significant distance to the short side, and that's a trade that would be nice to be in. So again, if we just take a look at the detail a little bit more on the daily time frame, you can see the sideways consolidation here that the market's been in. Every time the market's tried to make a move to the high side, it's sort of failed. It's even now technically in a downtrend, making lower highs and lower lows. Again, if I move into this a little bit more detail, you can see that there is a lower level in here, a structure level, where again we've had support and resistance within the context of this whole sideways move. So potentially, if there is a lower high at some point, it may well be around this level. We've certainly got resistance there, and that's going to sort of help to push the market to the short side. Indications and indicators and everything all looking bearish at the moment. So this one is still on the watch list, and we'll see how that develops. And the other one that we discussed was dollar CAD. So let me just go and take a look at our dollar CAD. And our dollar CAD here hasn't, as I say, it hasn't broken to the long side just yet. It's we're still within this sort of upward trend on the daily time frame, and within we're in this sort of sideways consolidation here. So no move on this one yet. We'll see how this one sort of develops. It's still on the watch list. So new opportunities coming into the second half of the week. So we certainly got momentum picked up in the markets. So that's looking particularly good. We've got a raft of economic data coming through the wires today, and of course on Friday we got non-farm payrolls. So we've got quite a good number of excuses and reasons here to help the markets along. So other markets, let's have a look at some other markets that we've got on our watch list going into the second half of the week. So if one here that we've been keeping an eye on is the dollar Swiss. Again, sort of similar to the dollar CAD. This market, again, it's been in the context of a short move. We've now had the sort of pullback. This is what it looks like on the weekly chart. So technically speaking, from a weekly perspective, this is more looking sort of fairly bearish, and this market could sort of roll over. We've got a significant level in here, and that's that 92 price point. Now, strengths and weaknesses at the moment are supportive of this market to the long side, and we could be looking if we have a look at this on the daily time frame, we could be looking at some potential opportunities on this to the long side. If we see on the daily, we've now got higher highs, higher lows. We've got the uptrend starting to form here. We've got strong momentum in the markets at the moment. That would support of course, the strengths and weaknesses that we have at the moment as well. And if we start to mark in some structure, you'll see here that the structure point through here where we've had lows and highs, so we've got support and resistance. The market has now sort of pulled back into this level, and we're finding support off there at the moment. So it's starting to look sort of quite nice here on the daily time frame. The mid time frame's not looking quite so easy because of this sort of pullback's been quite steep. So the lower time frames from this, so going down to sort of 15 and 60-minute time frames, we'd start to look for the development of a consistent trend here. And there may well be some, if we get this continuation of this market, there may well be some opportunities on those lower time frames before we get any kind of setup on the daily. Just bear in mind here that from a technical structure perspective, there is potentially quite a distance to the long side. There's not a great deal of noise in the way from a technical level perspective anyway to the long side to resist the market. So that's what I like to see, as some sort of tight setup, potential tight setup with potential reasonable distance for the market to flow. Okay, so let's have a look at a couple of these other dollar markets. We'll have a look at euro dollar. This is of course, the biggest market in the world, so it's always a good one to take a look at. So if we have a look at this on the daily, we can see that the euro has been in a bit of trouble lately. It's after the big move and big run up to 120. We've then been stuck in this sort of sideways consolidation. Things have started to weaken off. We've had weakness coming into the momentum. That's been supported by the economic outlook as well. So there's a lot of discussions, let's call them, around the European stimulus. And again, that's on the table again today as topics of discussion. So we expect to hear more about that. And it's all about this sort of like this sort of releasing of the sort of coronavirus budget. And that's what it's all about. So we can see that the market's taken a dip. We've had the rally back up again in the context of this consolidation. Now, just from a technical perspective, you know, when we look at these sorts of things, we can see that we've got a range here. Let's sort of mark that into probably the most sort of accurate sort of place. We've got a zone through here where the market's found key support. Before the market's broken underneath there, it's now come back up to that area, and now this is now becoming a resistance area. Now, if we focus on the context of where we are at the moment, we've got a high, low, lower high, lower low. Maybe somewhere between here, before a trend change, we need a lower high. This is a good place to find a lower high at key resistance, and the market's sort of printing bearish candles at the moment. So this could be an area where we start to get a rollover, and in which case that's going to sort of formulate a bit more of a stronger, more decisive trend to the short side. And I think we could get a move on the euro, possibly down to around that sort of 115, 116 sort of price point. That's what I'm looking at from a longer term perspective. So all eyes on the euro for weakness. If we have a look at this in a little bit more detail on the daily time frame, and if I sort of zoom out of this so you can get the sort of context of where price is, see that we're starting to get a bit of a rollover here in the context of the euro. This is not looking particularly easy from a 4-hour play perspective, but if we start to come down to sort of 15-minute timeframes and the sort of timeframes where we look for trade setups on, you can start to see that we've got lower highs, lower lows forming, and some sort of clean setup in this is the sort of thing that we'd be stalking for positioning. Okay, so let's come and have a look at some of these others. So we've got a few dollar markets that are looking sort of similar to this. If we have a look at the Aussie at the moment, and if I find my Aussie dollar, and if we take a look at this, similar in context to the Kiwi dollar, the market's actually starting to roll over here again. We've had that sort of weakness starting to come back in again. So from a higher time frame perspective, this market now is sort of broken through the previous sort of highs up here. So the trend from this short trend that we've got on the weekly, now things have now turned around and we changed direction of trend here. We've now broken the lower highs. We've now got higher highs and higher lows on the weekly. Let's just mark in a bit of structure in here. So again, if I start to sort of mark some levels in here, you can see that we've got these lows tying up with these highs, tying up with the current bounce on the weekly candle. So yeah, the market is finding support at a nice sort of technical area. Also happens to be within the moving averages here. Also happens to have strength in momentum at the moment as well. So let's have a look at the daily time frame. Okay, so the daily time frame not looking quite so easy here, and this is what I mean by these markets starting to look a little bit sort of indecisive. If I mark a bit of a level in here, and we've got a little bit of support and resistance in here, probably get down to this sort of area here too, again where we've got support through here, the market also finding resistance. So we've got a decision point at this point here in the market on the daily time frame. This is looking fairly sort of weak. We can see weakness coming into the market at the moment as well. We've got indicators pointing to the short side. So we don't have strength in the momentum, and the Aussie is weak today against a strong dollar. So from a strengths and weakness perspective, this is supportive of the market weakening off here. However, these are daily timeframes and weekly timeframes, so we could easily start to get maybe a bit of a retracement here, and then things could easily sort of turn around for the remainder of the week. Whichever way this is going to go, on these timeframes, we could be looking into the start of a new move, and particularly on the long side, on that weekly time frame, if that move continues, then we're going to get a move all the way up here at some point, and that's going to be plenty of distance to move to the long for opportunities. From the short side, if we get the low taken out here on the weekly, then we've got potentially quite a distance to the short side for opportunities too. So Aussie dollar, I think one of those markets quite interesting at the moment. It's on the cusp of moves either way, and we're keeping very close eyes on these some of these technical levels here. Okay, so we've taken a look at a few dollar markets, and they're all looking relatively similar at the moment. We'll have a look at one more, and again, if we take a look here at Kiwi yen. And again, this is one of my longer term sort of favorites. If I we start to sort of look at some structure through here. Now, the key levels on this market is that 70 sort of dollar level, 70 level on this. Now, you've got the market at the moment, again, in the context of a short trend, a little bit like Aussie Swiss. We've had the coronavirus crash, the market sort of pulled back and retraced that. And now here, we've just got a triple high formed here, with every time the market's hit those highs, it's rejected. It's also a zone here where there's been previous support as well. So again, this is sort of telling me that there is significant resistance to the long side on this. Now, of course, if the market takes out 72 up here, then I'm going to change my bias on it. But until that time, I'm looking at interest to see if the market is actually going to break to the short side. And we've had the market consistently testing the lows here. If we drill down to the daily time frame and start to mark in some structure here, again, you can start to see the range here that the market's sort of stuck in. And again, we've got within the context of this overall daily range, where we've had the market testing these highs, we're now in the context of a downtrend. We've got lower highs, lower lows. We've got weak momentum coming through in the indicators as well. And the market has bounced off the lower level here of the range, and now we've pulled back into resistance. So we've got support and resistance through here. Again, if I mark in here, you can see we've had support and resistance a number of times, and the market's just hit that resistance and now is starting to reject off there. So from a longer term perspective, I like to be short on this underneath this level on a break to the short side. Having said that, we could get another retester here of this level from an intraday perspective. But at the moment, the Kiwi is weak and the yen is strong. So that's supportive here of weakness in this market. So again, keeping an eye on Kiwi yen to the short side. Okay, so we've been through quite a few markets here. So there's quite a few things here to keep an eye on throughout the second half of the week. I certainly hope you find it useful. And if you like this format, then please give us a thumbs up on YouTube. Let us know that you like the format, you like the video, and we'll look to continue to run these as live events rather than a newsletter. And also, if you'd like to get notified of the videos and the live streams as and when they come along, then subscribe to the channel and you'll be able to get notifications as soon as we upload them. Okay, marvelous. So thank you for everyone who's joined. Thank you for the questions as well. That's superb. And we'll get back to the trading room and we'll see how things go from there. Hope it helps. Thank you very much. And super. Thank you. Bye for now.